Yo, what's up? It's Jimmy. I'm from Glitchy Thumbs. We're making characters, we're making games the glitchy way. In today's episode, we're going to be using the FBX of character 3.5, Raz the White Rabbit. We're going to be building something in Buildbox. If you want to see how I created the 3D model of this character and also how I came up with the idea, definitely check out previous videos that I have. You'll definitely find some good nuggets out of those videos. Those videos are fairly long. It's going to be jam-packed with a whole bunch of information. I'm trying to remember exactly what I talked about, but I'm going to need to review all that. Definitely check that out. It's not much I need to say, but let's get to the video. We have Raz the Rabbit, and in the last video, we exported the FBX, but I forgot to test the FBX in Buildbox. We're actually going to be doing that now. There might be some issues with character 3.5. I'm not too sure yet. Let's create new game. Click 3D game. We're going to drop in the FBX for character 3.5. Click import. The file is imported, but I don't see anything. We see the cursor, so that means something did import into Buildbox, but it looks blank. What did we do in Blender that made this export incorrectly? I'm expanding my rig to see what happened. I switch out of pose mode to object mode, selected everything with A. That's why you see it highlighted, both the rig and the 3D model of our character. And I'm just going to export this again. File, export, FBX, check selected objects, select armature, select mesh, select Z forward, uncheck add leaf bones, uncheck NLA strips. Select the same file so we can overwrite it. We don't really need the previous file so that we can overwrite it since that file was empty anyways. Click export FBX. Back in Buildbox, delete this file. That way we know for sure when we drag in another file that it's going to be working correctly or not. Drag in the new file, click import. That seemed to fix the issue. I probably didn't select everything when I exported in Blender because I was in pose mode. I don't know if that actually made a difference. I switched out of pose mode and went into object mode, and then I selected everything, the 3D model and the rig. But at least we know it works now. I'm going to delete this cube. We don't need it. We're just going to check out this FBX file for character 3.5. Click play. You can see we already have our cool animation. I created this in Blender for the idle animation. You can definitely check it out in the Blender video that I have linked below. Don't miss that. We created the idle animation and also the walk animation. You can see that entire process from beginning to end, which is pretty awesome. I click the camera button so we can change the view. So we can kind of look at this character from a specific view just to see if it looks good or not. And I think the 3D model looks pretty good. I think I did a great job on creating the 3D model of character 3.5, Raz the White Rabbit. I actually like that hint of red that we added on the nose. It makes him stand out a little bit more. Originally, it was just black and white, but the red really helps bring out the character. Click into the character. You can see we have 3 keyframes. We're only supposed to have 2. During this time, I was just exporting everything with all the actions. That's why the name is all the same. It's confusing when you look at it, but the way to fix that, if you want to know now, is that you'll just export without all actions checked. You'll have that unchecked export with a different name for each keyframe animation, and you'll have the correct name for each one of them in your FBX. But since we didn't get there yet in my videos, you're not going to be able to see that just yet, but I'll definitely explain it when we get to those videos. I don't know when exactly when I caught that issue or figured out how to fix it, but I definitely do. It's going to be upcoming with the characters that I'm making. We have 3 keyframe animations, but what animation is each one of them? That was the confusing thing for me. When you make multiple keyframe animations and you export as one FBX, they all have the same name. So that's something that was on my mind during that time. How can I figure out what animation this is without having to test each one every time I imported it into Buildbox? The way I was doing it at this moment in time was I would go into Blender and see what animations I would have. Then here I have a whole bunch of animations. When you export it, all the animations actually export with the FBX. Could get a little bit confusing, but it's interesting that there's 3 when there's a bunch more than 3 in Blender. The only way to actually test this is to manually do it by just clicking looped so that the animation loops, and then you press play. Let's change the outline first from white to black. We need to drop in the texture change where I added the red pause as well, but that's actually not the right file. The right file is the one with the extension red pause. I created this in Photoshop. Definitely check out that video if you're interested in seeing how I changed it. It's super simple. Just did it in Photoshop, refilled the color. When we drop in this texture, you can see instantly the feet is changed to red. I don't know if you noticed that. On the left side, uncheck receive shadow, press play. There's multiple things we're going to be testing right now. We're going to be testing the animation to see which animation it is. I can tell because I'm the one that kind of created the animation. So it should be the idle animation. We're also going to be testing to see how the outline looks like. We're also going to be testing to see how the texture looks like with the red paws. You can see the animation is playing. It looks like his face is being stretched a little bit. This animation probably came from another character within the character set that I have in Blender. So this isn't correct, I don't think. We can use this animation if we wanted to, but we don't want the 3D model to deform like this because it looks a little bit weird when it's stretched like that. You can reuse keyframe animations from other characters in Blender and then bring it over to your characters, but they're going to be deformed a little bit different because of the way you set up the different bones in the rigging process. It's entirely up to you what you want to do with your games if you make some. This animation looks pretty cool. But yeah, during this time, I was just having a hard time distinguishing animations, and I was getting to the part where I was creating complex animations. I'm just trying my best to learn that process and build until I create something cool and looks very different and unique. Just getting through that animation process so that I can prepare for my complex characters as we get to them. To test out the other animations, what I decided to do was just drop in another FBX. This way we have another file for the character. We'll have 2 FBXs for the same character, but then we can just connect to the other keyframe animations. That way we know which animation is which. This one I renamed to 2. When you drag in a new FBX, everything is started over, so I don't have the black outline again for this character, but that's okay. This one also has the white paws. Interesting, I didn't realize this. When I pressed play, something happened to the texture file. Also, it got rid of the first FBX's outline. So I might have imported it incorrectly, or this could have been some sort of inconsistency with Buildbox. I actually didn't notice that. Wait. As the preview is playing, you can see all of a sudden the animation stops, but the one with the black outline is still playing. It looks like the character is duplicated twice. Oh, there's actually 2 of them in the scene. I didn't really notice that because the character was overlapping each other in the same position. I probably dragged in 2 of the same characters over and I didn't realize that. I just noticed that now. We just need to delete the second character where the first character's location is. See, I still don't notice things when I'm recording and watching the videos. That's not actually an inconsistency. That was just my mistake. I didn't realize I dragged in 2 of the second FBX files into the scene. But for the second one, let's uncheck Receive Shadow. For this one, we're going to be using the Shadeless material option. We click Edit for the texture, select the texture with the red paws, change the outline from white to black. Click Assign. We're going to connect this one to the second keyframe animation and check Looped. Delete the first keyframe animation. When we hit play, we're actually testing multiple things now. We're testing the Shadeless option for the second version of the character. We're also testing to see if the idle animation is correct. That one looks like it was the correct idle animation, which is the one on the right side. The color always seems to be a little bit cartoony and brighter. For the Shadeless option, you don't really see the low poly design that we came up with for our 3D model. So that's like the differences between the 2. During this time, that's what I wanted to compare for my 3D models, because I was deciding whether I should keep the low poly design or go with the Shadeless option where it's a little bit more cartoony. It's like a mixture of a 2D character but in a 3D space. That's why I wanted to test the differences between the 2. I did have a hard time. I still have a hard time choosing between the 2 because they both look really good and they both have their own aesthetics. I just go with the flow a lot of the times. It really just depends on the game itself. But I can always change it at any time between the default and the Shadeless option. Let's test the second animation, which is the walk animation that I created in Blender. Definitely check that video out if you haven't. The walk animation was something that I thought worked out pretty well. We kept adding on to it with different rig layers and it came out pretty cool. I hit play and you can see this walk animation looks pretty cool. I guess it's a little bit of a sliding animation. I didn't lift the leg this time around. This is my second time working with a walk animation and I didn't look at any references. I just went with the flow, how I felt and visualized what a walk animation would look like. Back to the first character. Since we know the first keyframe animation isn't the correct animation, I could just unhook that from the start, delete that, connect to the second keyframe animation because that one is the idle animation. Check Looped. Since we made some progress in this file, I want to have some sort of a reference point to maybe refer back to if I need to. I'm going to save this Buildbox file. select the previous characters, put it into character 3.5 folder, and increment it so that it's character 3_5. I don't know why I put 6. Is that 6? No, that's 5. I don't know why. My eyes are playing tricks on me. Yeah, it's 5. I put 5. We hit play. You can see we have the nice idle animation with the default setting for the material. You can see our low poly design looks pretty good with the red paws. On the right side is the second animation, which is the walk animation that I created in Blender as well. We also have the shadeless material, so you can really see the differences between the two. You have to make the decision on what you like best. I'm leaning more towards the left side in terms of the 3D model. I just feel like the aesthetics is really nice. You can really see the 3D model, and I could shade smooth if I wanted to and just get rid of that geometry. It'll look a lot more smoother as a 3D model. But also some games I really like the kind of cartoony 2D look. For this one, what works really best with like the grass on the floor is probably the left one. But I like both animations, of course. We're gonna go back to the second version of the character, change this from shadeless to default. We just hit play. That way we can see how everything looks like. This looks a lot better in my opinion. I would probably use this character in the game mechanic that we're going to be building. What I'm doing is just setting up a scene so that I remember what this character looks like with both of the animations. That's why I'm moving the camera around. That way we know we have an idle animation and then we also have a walk animation. This is going to be super clear for us when we record the video for this. This is going to be like a screen recording that I always take on my phone, and it stays on my phone so that I can continue to see this character and generate more ideas just by looking at the video instead of going through the entire process of going to the computer and everything. I just want to have easy access, as always, to my characters in case one day I think of an idea based on the video. I'll always have that at the tip of my hands. I've been just using the default grass setting just because it works really well with my characters. It just makes the characters pop out a little bit more. I'll just use the eyedropper tool for the background color. That way everything's just green and the focus is on the character. It gives it a little bit more contrast. Even though we have simple colors at the moment, that's perfectly fine. I just need to have some sort of screen recording for me to visualize and generate more ideas. I moved the camera down a little bit so that the midline is being hidden behind the character and you can't really see it. It blends in really well. It gives it a really nice background. The reason why I just chose the green color from the grass is because, like I said, we're not at the polishing stage yet, or at least not in my mind, of picking colors that we would like for the character or for the background. We're in the very early stages still of creating a game. This is just a prototype. I just want a contrasting color for the background with the floor across and in comparison to the character. I press play again. These characters are perfectly fine at the moment. All the animations are working. All the textures are correct. The 3D model is really nice. Click in the first version of character 3.5, whereas the white rabbit, I drag in the if collide. This is something I've been doing with all my characters, where I'll just drag the if collide first, and then after we'll just edit the collision shape together at the same time. Normally there would be a start and the if collide that we dragged in, but I didn't set any physics. So that's something that we would need to do by clicking the character. For the physics, we would change it to dynamic or kinematic. The one I'm always using is a dynamic. We need to do the same for the second character. This way we have physics set to dynamic. Since the physics are set to dynamic, now we have a start collision, and we also have the if collide collision. Both of them are going to be a rectangle or a square. It's easy to adjust both of them at the same time when you do it in the beginning. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit confusing later on and you have to do it separate. I try to adjust things as efficient as possible. Of course, we might have different collision shapes for other if collide nodes, but for now, I've just been practicing on making those two the same as early as possible in the project, and then we don't have to worry about it too much. We can always duplicate that if collide if we need another if collide, and we'll already have the collisions set up for us. We don't have to worry about that too much. Just adjust this as best as I can. Make sure to rotate around your view to see how it looks around the character. I'm always using the cube collision shape. It's just simple to use. I don't have to worry about getting the exact collision shape for the character at the moment. I just need it to collide with things on the screen. That's all that really matters at the moment. For this character, the neck is definitely sticking out way too much, or at least how the character is. That's a lot of dead space for the collision shape if we're using the cube. That's perfectly fine. It's okay. As a prototype character, it's not really a big deal. We haven't even gotten to the point where this is used in a game or anything. Not too much to worry about at the moment. We're just testing things, making sure everything works. going through the process of bringing it into Buildbox, getting used to the UI again, getting used to creating games. That's really a lot of the reasons why I'm just creating these characters. I just need some sort of characters to use in a game, and whichever one gets me most excited is the one I'm going to be creating with. It's going to take some time to actually find that character, but I am going to give you a hint though. I did find the character, but you're going to have to figure it out by watching all these videos. I'm just going to let you know that one of them I am very excited about. Whichever one, you're going to have to figure that out as we cross that bridge. We pretty much just set up the initial Buildbox file for recording the animations for character 3.5, as the white rabbits. We're going to need to export this to get on my device. Go to File, Project Settings, make sure we add in our bundle ID. The one I always use is com.gt.testergame. I've always forgot to do this for my characters in the previous Buildbox files, but in the project settings, you can actually just put the character name here. That's what I do. And I always entered that in Xcode, but I didn't realize that I could do it here because I always miss it. I'm always in my flow and then I forget to actually put it there. But here I always put the character, and then this one is character 3.5. You can put it right there and it'll show up in the same spot in Xcode where we always have been putting it, under the bundle display name. Pretty much the same thing. You go to File, Export iOS, save the file, click the folder, click iOS, click the Xcode project, go to Info, and you can see character 3.5 is under bundle display name already. We don't need to always do that anymore. We can just enter it in Buildbox and it'll automatically do that for us. We just eliminate that part from my process. We click Sign in capabilities, select my team, and here just add 3.5 so I can have a separate app. I have an app for each character to test on my device. Select your iPhone. Sometimes it's going to take some time to process your iPhone for development. I press play to get the file to my device. This one's going to run to my device. We're going to get a screen recording of character 3.5, Raz, the white rabbits. We're going to get a screen recording of the default material. This one is the one with the low poly design, and it has the animation for the idle animation and the walk animation. We have that video for us to review or come up with ideas. Also, we're going to have another video for the comparison of the shadeless material. It's going to have the same thing. I have this screen recording saved on my device for when I need to look at all my characters and decide which game this character is going to be used in. That's the purpose of setting up the character in Buildbox initially. At least that's what I do, because all that work we did for drawing the character, creating the character, doing all the unwrap and all the textures, rigging and animation, we need to have some sort of reference point. This is my reference point for my character. Otherwise, you're not going to really know what you did for the character. Of course, you know you created the character, but if you don't have a video of it, then you really can't think about what this character can be used for a game or even an animation of some sort. So that's going to be the first Buildbox file for character 3.5, Raz the white rabbit. Once we have that, we got that out of the way. We're going to need to do something with the character. And if you have ideas on creating a mechanic, you can start implementing that now in this Buildbox file or creating a new Buildbox file. I decided to use this one and I added a brain box this time. I selected the animated platformer. I haven't used this during this time in the video, or at least I forgot how that process is. That's what I wanted to test. And I add another brain box and click mobile controls. It's going to automatically add these presets for you. You just need to set it up with the nodes. I'll click into the character. You can see it already added in these preset nodes for us to use. We just have to set it up correctly. For the idle animation, we can just select one of these keyframe animations. This might look very confusing because you don't really know what animation is which. That's why it's important to export your FBXs all manually with a separate name in Blender. And that would eliminate this process of having to figure it out. But during this time, I didn't figure that out just yet. I had to just do a process of elimination. I thought I could just change the name at the top and it would just change the animation name, but that doesn't really do anything. In the list, it's still the same. Changing the name at the top doesn't even affect it at all. I was just pretty much wasting time, but it's good to actually test that out. And I at least know for sure. The only way, if you have all the same keyframe animation names, is to just do process elimination, like I said, selecting one and then testing it to see if the animation is correct. For the idle animation, I just selected the third one on the list. The walk animation, I selected the fourth one on the list. My assumption is that they're both like the same. It's just a longer list because I dragged in the FBX twice, but created 2 additional keyframe animations with all the same names. For the mobile controls, this one's using a joystick. That's the thing we're going to be testing. Under the receive joystick, I removed the event group name. In the mind map, I added a UI screen, connected that. In the UI screen, you can actually add a joystick. That way we can test the joystick mechanic of moving the character around. Just click on asset library and search for joystick or find the joystick. For some reason, I was trying to type it in, but I couldn't. But I know I downloaded the joystick before. I can just click my library and then click joystick, add this to the project, and then drag it over to the UI, put it towards the middle somewhere. And then it has an event name, which is a send node. This joystick is sending some signal to the receive node. That's where we put the name for J0. Make sure the names are correct for the event name. That's actually J0 and not JO. Press play. Let's try to move the character around with this joystick. When I touch it, the character jumps. It definitely works, just not correctly just yet. It at least did something, but let's see why it didn't work. I should have been able to move, but I couldn't. The reason why the character jumped was because there's a UI jump button, and the UI button is the screen. Whenever I touch the screen, the character would jump. We can also uncheck this and also uncheck the UI run button. Since we're using the animated platformer, I needed to use the subscene, and I didn't even set up the asset on this one. That's probably why nothing was working. We just saw the character with the previous subscene, so we need to set that up. This part is confusing as well because all the names are the same, but you can select the correct character on this list just by looking at what the characteristics are. One of them has the shadeless material, so we probably don't want to use that one, but maybe I did. I just assigned it anyways, so we can test this out real quickly. Now, since I selected that one, the character is shadeless now. The joystick is still not moving the character. During this time, I was very unfamiliar with the joystick process because I forgot. It's been quite some time since I used this. I wanted to at least test it correctly using it from the Brainbox option. I like to test things to see if I can actually create it myself from scratch, because if it doesn't work, that means I'm missing something, or maybe there's an inconsistency, but it should just work straight from the Brainbox, but it wasn't. So I thought that was interesting. We're gonna need to figure that out. I deleted the second version of the character. We don't really need that on the screen right now. We already have our video on our phones for the comparison of the animations. This is like creating the first movements of the character. This would probably be saved as a different Buildbox file. I'm thinking in stages where you have the animation portion, you have that video of all the animations, and it's all laid out for anyone to see. This one is beginning to learn about what controls you can actually use for this character. For this one, I'm using the joystick mechanic. We were able to see the joystick mechanic with character 3.4 Dino Turtle. We used a Buildbox template, but that one was working correctly because there was already a template that was already set up in Buildbox. But it's always good to try to figure out how that joystick mechanic was set up without the template itself. Like I said, if you know how to do things the hard way, then you can take shortcuts and everything else will be much easier. Setting it up from scratch is definitely a hard way because things aren't going to work right off the bat. I'm just looking through the settings again. Maybe I missed something. I'm scrolling down, and under mobile controls, the event group is still the same for the joystick. I thought I changed that. I thought I removed that already, but also the event name is also incorrect. It's joystick. I thought I would change that to J0 already. Also, the run and the jump UI buttons are still selected, so maybe it didn't save. So I don't know what happened. I press play and I didn't change the event name from joystick to JO. If I hit play, the joystick is definitely not going to work because that hasn't changed just yet. I noticed that, so I paste in the J0. And since I paste that in, it looks like it's working, but it's moving a little bit weird. Let's hit restart. I'm moving the joystick. The character moves around, but it's sliding in the incorrect direction of where I'm moving it. I hit play again. There's some glitchy thing happening with the character. That's because we still have the old subscene, so I definitely needed to delete that. We don't need the keyframe animations from that. That's just a duplicate for no reason. We can delete that You can see the previous subscene is overlapping the subscene that we already have for the animated platformer. When you use the animated platformer, make sure to not have duplicates of the subscene or any keyframe animations left over. Otherwise, it will look weird. The movement's a little bit off. This is something that I wanted to figure out during this time, getting the animated platformer correctly with the joystick. We can delete that subscene now. We don't need that. That cleans up our node map or our character. Since we deleted that, we can now see the character doing our walk animation, but it's moving in the incorrect direction. When I move left and right, it's going a little bit weird. But in order to fix that, in the subscene, we have to rotate the character 90 degrees, possibly in the Y axis, or it could be a negative 90. Depends. You just have to A/B test it. When I go right, his butt is actually going to the right side, which is incorrect. We need to actually put a negative 90. That way the direction is correct. We need the head to be moving right when we move right, the head moving left when we move left. This is pretty good. This is correct for the direction of the character moving with the joystick, but he's like sliding all over the place. How can we fix that? This might be a friction issue with the character. There's usually no friction in the beginning. Any movements, it will just slide all over the place. I'm deleting the second version of the character. We don't need that. We just need one character for this. I'm saving the file. We already have the Buildbox project for the animations. For this one, we can save it as a new file, add another extension so that we know what this one is. I added underscore test underscore platformer underscore controls. You don't have to be that descriptive like how I do it, but it just makes a lot more sense. Like now I have that in video. I'm able to explain it more clearly. This is just a reference point for my characters. Since I have a whole bunch of them, I'll at least know with character 3.5, Raz the White Rabbit is the character that I started using the animated platformer on, and what did I do to fix it when I ran into the issue of it not working. That creates a note for me. That's what we did for the video. I can always search up the video or search up the character to figure out, okay, this is all the stuff that we did. That's how I'm like setting everything up and labeling everything. Or at least that's the reason for labeling everything. If you have a whole bunch of characters and a whole bunch of game mechanics that you're working on, you're going to need to label them as clearly as possible so that you know how to search up all the things that you worked on. You're going to need some of these things for all the characters and all the game mechanics. Back to the subscene, we can change the material back from shadeless to default. This way we can test the character with the low poly design, see how that looks. We still have this sliding issue. With the sliding, it's perfectly fine if you have some sort of ice or snow type of setting or theme for your game mechanic. Then it would make sense to have the friction very low. You'd be like sliding all over the place. It doesn't really make sense for the grass. At least that's how I visualize it. That's something we need to adjust. So we can adjust it on the right side with the friction. I just changed it to 1 and test that. This way we have less sliding, but we still have a lot of sliding. And that's going to happen when you have your physics set to dynamic. I increased it to 5 for the friction. This one's a little bit better. It's more sticky to the floor. When you move with the joystick, there's really no slide, but 5 might be a little bit too high actually. It just really depends on what type of feel you want for the character. I drag the character to your characters. This way we can have the camera follow the position of the character. And when I hit play, anytime we move left or right, you can see the camera moves with the character. And we just need to move the camera in a better location because that really made the character look a little bit offset. Again, this will be where you enter whole numbers. Much easier to work with for your character settings or your camera settings or any settings in Buildbox. You can also have snap mode on. That would probably make all the settings at least snap into place. Then you won't have all these decimal values. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I'm a little bit messy, so this doesn't really bother me as much. I just do whole numbers sometimes to practice, to create that muscle memory. It's just easier to work with simple values. And we just test the joystick mechanic. This feels really good. At least I think it feels really good for the joystick mechanic. We know how to set it up from the beginning now, not from a template, but from the Brainbox option. I like to test things in the most bare bone, stripped out version of a mechanic. So if you can set up the very most basic things, you can create your own foundation for your characters and your game mechanics. It's always good to know how everything was put together and built. Otherwise, it gets confusing when you have a whole bunch of nodes. You have no idea how they connected or how it works. and then you have to learn about all the nodes, and that makes everything confusing. You end up not wanting to work on your games anymore because you have so much to learn. That's one of the things that I think kills a lot of momentum and a lot of projects. People using the templates and not knowing what they're doing. That's a huge problem. The templates are helpful, of course. Definitely use them, but also there's a learning curve for any technology that you use, especially with Buildbox. It's a game engine, so there's some sort of learning curve. As you can see, it took me some time to learn even the most basic things, but I'm doing it with each character, so it makes the entire process a little bit more fun than actually just using 3D shapes. I don't know. To me, it seems a little bit boring to use like cubes and cones or something. I'd rather just use a character because I was so excited to create that character. That excitement makes me want to build that character in a game mechanic. Now I'm just using all that momentum and that motivation to create the game mechanics. And it always restarts for me when I have a new character. And it builds and builds over the weeks. I'm just like forcing myself to learn the technology again so that we can create some cool stuff. We're going to need to adjust some of the movement parameters, like the walk speed was probably a little bit too fast, and the run speed we can change the max walk speed to 4 and the max run speed to 10. This way we can test out to see. Usually the movement speed should match the animation speed, so that's something you have to be aware of. I'm just messing around with this character. He's walking, but the movement's definitely off, as I can see watching this video, but that's okay. We're just testing this as a prototype, just making sure the mechanic works correctly. If we wanted to create some sort of joystick mechanic, we could do this from bare bones and use this file for character 3.5. If you use the joystick in Buildbox, that joystick just stays in the same location. I'm using a different joystick. I forget where I downloaded this one. I purchased it from a developer. It's somewhere on the internet. I think if you search up dynamic joystick, you should be able to find it. There's probably going to be a lot of different joysticks. I got to find the exact file if you guys are interested in using this one. I like using this one because there's additional settings for this one. It at least hides on the screen when you're not touching the screen. When you do, it will appear and it will show up in any location that you tap on the screen. That's why I like this joystick a little bit better. When we hit play, there's nothing on the screen other than the character and then our background of the grass. When I tap on the screen, the joystick appears, and when I let go, the joystick disappears. I like that. I prefer that actually. For this joystick, since I added it in, it's not working correctly. We're able to get the left and right movements correct, but it's not going anywhere. Something happened, but what happened? I dragged in the joystick because I thought I had to and did a node map. That didn't seem to do anything. I was trying to figure this out. The event name is the same. It's J and 0, so it should work. Press play again. The character is moving left and right and up and down, but there's no movement speed. That's interesting. I dragged in the old joystick. I just had both of the joysticks. If I move the joystick at the bottom of the screen, that's going to be moving with the new one, but it doesn't move the character at all. But if I move with the old joystick, it moves the character. That was a little bit weird. The settings seem to be the same. I don't know why it's not working. Some of the stuff, I don't know if it's like inconsistencies or maybe I just did it incorrectly. Sometimes things work and sometimes things don't. I'm just pasting in the JO again. Maybe that was an issue. Pressing play, we still have that issue of the character just staying in place, but being able to move around still with the joystick direction. I didn't know I ran into this issue for character 3.5. I know how to use the joystick mechanic and it always has been working. I don't know what happened in this file. Quite interesting. I'm actually curious because I have no idea how I fixed it. I've already tried all the ideas I would have, so I'm surprised that it's not working. That's an interesting thing. So I guess I opened a template. I guess that came with the dynamic joystick. That's where I got the joystick from. I clicked into the character and it used a cube, but this one used a UI joystick move, which is a different node in Buildbox for the joystick. This is different than the receive node. That quite possibly was an issue maybe, but it shouldn't actually be. They both use the same joystick signal. It's J0, so it should work. So I went back into my file, and then I closed out of my file, went back into the dynamic joystick file, exported the cube as a BB asset. Oh yeah, I have a templates folder of all the different templates that I found on the Buildbox forum or whatever I downloaded or whatever assets I bought. And I labeled each template or BB asset or BB doc with the developer's name, just in case I need to credit them for anything that I used in my projects. Just makes a lot more sense to do that. Forgot about that. Dragged in that cube that I exported. That's super simple for dragging into Buildbox. That way, if you have this character with a whole bunch of nodes that you set up and you want to reuse that character in another Buildbox project, you'll be able to export it and then reuse it. That's a pretty cool thing. For this one, I just wanted, I guess, the UI joystick move. I could have just copied the one from the cube and pasted it into this node map, but I decided to just search for it with the search bar and drag in the UI joystick move. This one pretty much has the same settings, except limit repeat signals is unchecked by default, but the one in the cube was checked. But it actually works now with the dynamic joystick. Maybe we needed that node, but I don't remember using that node. I know I use it sometimes, and sometimes I don't. I have to look at all my characters again, because I'm forgetting a lot of things that I'm doing. It's like a lot to learn. This one's a little bit glitchy. When you look at the character, you can see when we move, it does a little weird glitch move. Could possibly be the limit repeat signals. It could just be sending a lot of signals, messing up how the visuals look like, but no. Even limit repeat signals doesn't work. It's still a little bit glitchy. But of course, like I said, we're making characters, we're making games the glitchy way. All my games are always going to start off glitchy. They might still be glitchy when I publish them, but that's all part of the process. Every game isn't going to be perfect. At least mine's aren't. We're going to try to make it as perfect as we can. I just want to make sure I even have a game. That's where the model or the tagline comes from. At least that's what I thought of. It's just letting you know that my games are glitchy. This is Glitchy Thumbs. Everything we do is glitchy, so we gotta embrace it. I unhooked the receive joystick from the out to the joystick in the mobile controller. The UI joystick seems to work, but now it's moving backwards. I'm connecting the move to the joystick. Maybe I think that would fix that. That doesn't do anything. We actually don't need to connect this one. I connect the receive joystick back to the mobile controller again. And I'm removing the J0 from the event name. That way we can test the UI joystick move. It's just moving in the opposite direction, and we would just need to change the rotation back to 90, but I don't do that with my current characters. I think this was the time when I was trying to figure this out, because I know I'm going to be using the joystick mechanic. We needed to figure out the exact way before we actually move on to the next part of the process. It's just using the UI joystick move was a little bit glitchy, and I didn't like that. It just makes the 3D model a little bit more tacky, looks a little bit weird. Definitely someone's going to call that out. I'm clicking into it to see the code. This is JavaScript. If you're really good at coding in JavaScript, you could actually adjust some of this code and all these functions. You could even create custom code if you want. I'm dragging in the cube again just to see if this UI joystick move is a little bit different than the one I have. I was really trying to debug this at the time, because if we use the UI joystick move, the animations don't play correctly. I was connecting the idle to the joystick, which is incorrect. Of course, we're going to get some errors. That one doesn't make sense. I think the idle and the move were mainly used for connecting to possibly the keyframe animations. But with the platformer mobile controls and the animated platformer, those two brain boxes work hand in hand with each other. That's why I wanted to figure this out, to make sure that if I did use those brain boxes, it would be simple enough for me to just add in and not have to worry about it. This is something you're going to always run into, where things might not even work correctly. You just have to spend some time to debug. But of course, you got to make sure that you're not spending all that time debugging. That's a lot of energy that you're spending on a problem that might actually take away from completing this game. I connected the idle to run to see what that does. We're still having that glitchy effect. I don't think it did anything. The only way we really know, if we unhook the receive joystick, nope, it doesn't really seem to do anything. I just deleted that UI joystick node. I'm not trying to use it that way. We just need to figure out why it's not working the way it is. But I bring it back, the UI joystick move node. Like I said, I'm going to be undoing things. I'm going to be changing my mind a lot. That's just how I do things. I think the UI joystick move actually works best with characters or objects that isn't dynamic, that have like animation of some sort. I don't know actually. I'm just very curious on what I did to fix this, because we shouldn't have even had this issue working with the joystick, because now I don't have any issues working with the joystick. I just drag it in similar way and it works. There might have been something that I did to fix it, but we won't really know until I get to the end of this video. I drag in another UI joystick move. This was probably from a previous Buildbox file. I've been using Buildbox for quite some time, so occasionally I'll save some nodes because a lot of things change. You can see that this one has an input option, but it has the same outputs. I save nodes throughout the years just in case I might need them. This one I actually have to connect the start to the inputs. It doesn't have similar options. The difference is this one doesn't have a receive or typing in the J0. That's probably why it has an input, but we're going to test it anyways. I unhooked the receive joystick again, and I connected this joystick move to the joystick in mobile controller, but that's incorrect. I can already see that that doesn't really do anything, but I don't know why I kept doing it over and over. It doesn't make sense because we tried that already with each of the nodes, but I was probably in my flow of trying to resolve the problem. Sometimes I get to a point where I'm just repeating things. You can see that in my process when I'm doing things over and over, like a pattern. That tends to happen. I definitely see the pattern here. I actually connected the out to the input of the UI joystick, but you can't really tell if that worked or not because the receive joystick was already connected. We don't really know it's working unless we unhook it and then test. If we use this UI joystick move with the inputs and connect it to the out of the receive joystick, then it works, but it doesn't work correctly because our character is in the incorrect direction. Also, when we're moving, the animations doesn't switch to the walk animation. That's a bummer. That doesn't work. What I decided to try was finally, because this is what I would have done now, it makes much more sense, connecting the idle to the play of the idle animation. When we have the idle movements, we would play the idle animation. That's something I should have tried earlier on, but during the time in the video, I was very new. We didn't really figure that out just yet. For the move, we're going to connect to the run animation and we're going to test that. So you can see the movements are working with the dynamic joystick now. The animations switch to the walking animation. It's just in the incorrect direction. If I use the UI joystick move, I have to switch the rotation in the y-axis again to, I think, 90 degrees. But this at least works correctly. When we let go, the idle animation plays and it at least switches off. That's how I thought I had to use that joystick move. Like I said, in the rotation, I'm removing the negative so that we have 90. But now the character is facing the opposite direction. So it's facing away from us. But now at least when we move right, it moves. The animation plays correctly with the walk. When I let go, the idle animation plays. This is correct. It feels correct. This is what I wanted from the beginning, but we had to debug this a little bit. But that actually doesn't resolve the problem of just using like the platformer mobile controls with the animated platformer. This UI joystick move only connects to idle and move. All the other animations aren't going to be playing if we're not connected with the animated platformer. That was my concerns at the time. I'm just trying different things now. Since the receive joystick node is pretty much a receive node, we can just create a receive joystick. This is a separate one. Have the event name as J0. This one we're going to connect to the UI joystick move. But you see, that's just creating redundant work because it should have just worked with the receive joystick, the platform removal controls, but it didn't. And I don't know why. I just deleted that because I thought at the time this is how the setup should be, where we have the receive joystick as the receive node. And then we have it connected to the UI joystick move. And then the idle and the move of that is connected to the keyframe animations with idle animation and run animation. This works though. Like I said, if it works, it works. That was a setup that I did for character 3.5, Raz the Rabbit. As always, when we're finished with the task in Buildbox, we can just save this file, go to export, iOS, and then save this folder, and then export this file. Click into the Xcode project. Under signing and capabilities, select my team. I'm going to be using the same bundle ID with the 3.5 that I added. This is going to replace the animation app that we created earlier. At least this one is going to have the movements of the joystick and the new dynamic joystick that we're going to be using. We run that to the device. And then I'll just create a screen recording of character 3.5. Raz the white rabbit, this one is going to have the screen recording of the joystick that we added. We're testing the joystick on the screen. The character, we're going to be moving left, right, and up and down. For this, I'm just going to be testing the joystick mechanic of moving it around the grass area and seeing the switching between the idle animation and the walk animation. That's pretty simple for testing the joystick mechanic in the most simplest form. That's going to be the third screen recording that I did for character 3.5. We have the first two, which is the screen recording of the animations. One is for the default material with the low poly design. The other one is the shadeless material. We have a comparison between the two. Also, now we have the joystick mechanic of moving this character around and seeing the switching between the idle and the walk animation. Those are things that I have for myself on my phone to observe, to see what we can think of when we use the mechanic and also these animations. These are all like reference points. It's going to be working in conjunction with these videos that I'm narrating right now, so that I know where everything is. This is how I label everything and put together a instruction manual on all my characters and everything that I did. This just makes much more sense doing it this way, because now I know how each character looks like. I know what animations they have. I know what mechanics we already applied to it. If we wanted to apply another mechanic, we can, and I would just create another screen recording and I can always add on top of it. I can always have a list of a bunch of things that we did per character. This also keeps me on track in making sure I try different things with each character that I work on. Also try different mechanics so that I'm always not using the same thing over and over, unless I really like that mechanic and I just want to find another character that works with this mechanic. Then that's also another use case for it. And that concludes this episode for character 3.5, Raz the White Rabbit, building it in Buildbox. This will be part 1. I'm going to have a part 2 to have some more content on what I did with this character. I'm going to put it in another video so that this video is not going to be super long. If you like this video, hit the like button. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you think in the comments. That'd be pretty great on what you think about all the characters and all the stuff that I'm doing. If this is helpful to you, great. I hope it does help you in your journey. It's been a pretty cool project that I've been working on. I'll see you in the next video to continue with the part 2 of Raz the White Rabbit. We're going to be using it in another mechanic. That way we just add on to it, see what else we can do with this character. I'll see you in the next video so that we can continue to make characters, continue to make games the glitchy way. Take care. Peace out.